Welcome to Animal Stories for Kids. If you like our stories, please give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to our podcast, and share it with your friends and family. If you're listening on Spotify, you can support the podcast through listener support. Plus, check out exclusive show-related content and join the community at patreon.com/Animal Stories for Kids. And now, it's time for our story. Once upon a time, there was an African civet named Clyde, and he loved to chase mice and catch them to eat them. Every day when the sun would set, Clyde the African civet would wake up, stretch out his whole body, yawn a big yawn, and go to the nearest water hole to take a nice drink of water, and then start to look for some mice to eat. Except this time, Clyde had an unwanted visitor who was also looking to eat mice. It was a leopard, and Clyde the African civet saw the leopard laying down on a branch of a tree. But Clyde was so far away and was behind a bush that the leopard couldn't see it. And Clyde wanted to get out of the way of the leopard, or else he would be the leopard's meal. So Clyde just laid low as much as he could underneath a bush, looking to see if any mice would come running on by. So he waited and waited and waited. As the moonlight lit up the whole wilderness, Clyde the African civet saw a few lizards running around. And although he did like to eat lizards, mice were his favorite food to eat. And they were just so fun to catch. So Clyde just stayed patient, watching, waiting, listening, until finally, he saw a few mice running from rock to bush to another rock to behind a tree, looking around for other bigger animals, and when they thought it was clear, they would keep running to another place to hide. But Clyde the African civet saw all of it, so he was just waiting for them to get a little bit closer and right into reach where he could just pounce on them. And so the mice started running and hiding and running and hiding, getting closer and closer to Clyde. And as they got close enough to Clyde, he popped out of the bushes and he pounced on some mice, which he actually caught 3 of them by their tails with his paws. And right as he was about to lift them up into his mouth, the African civet heard something he didn't want to hear. It was the leopard. It jumped off the branch, and the African civet jumped out of the way right where the leopard landed, letting go of all the mice. And the leopard said, "Hey, you look like a nice meal to me right now. What if I let you eat the mice first, and then I'll eat you?" Clyde the African civet said, "Do you really want to eat me? I'm so yucky, and I got all this fur on me, like you wouldn't want any of that to be stuck in your teeth, would you? What if I find a nice rodent for you? Would that be better for you? Because I sure don't want to be eaten right now." And the leopard said, "What are you, a smart guy? Are you trying to get away from me eating you?" And the African civet said, "Well, yeah, pretty much. Would you give yourself up to another animal to be eaten so easily?" And the leopard said, "Well, I think you do have a point there. But I'm hungry. So when I see you or the mice, I would rather eat you." Then Clyde the African civet said to the leopard, "Would you rather eat me because mice are harder to catch for you?" And the leopard said, "Pah, yeah, right. I catch mice all night and all day if I want to. Easy." And so Clyde the African civet said, "Well, let's see who's better at it. I love chasing mice and eating them. So much that I'm probably better at it than you are." And the leopard said, "Are you kidding me? Seriously, do you know who I am? Mice are nothing. I eat mice like it's a snack." Clyde the African civet said, "Well, if you really think that you're better at catching mice than I am, let's see who can catch the most mice, and the one who catches most can eat the other animal." And the leopard thought to itself, "Pah, this is nothing. I can catch mice so fast that this African civet wouldn't even expect it." So the leopard said, "You know what? I'm game." Hey, you see the group of stars in the sky that are over that big tree over there? Let's you and me see how many mice we can both catch by the time that group of stars passes that tree and ends up over those mountains you see far away. And the African civet said, "Oh, that'll be like just a few minutes. Yeah, I could do that. And we'll both meet right here after we catch all of our mice, okay?" And the leopard said, "Sounds good." So Clyde the African civet told the leopard, "All right, I'm gonna count down from 5. After I count down, we both go and find as many mice as we can, and we bring them back here, and then we'll count them, and then if you win, you can eat me, and if I win, I can eat you. I don't really eat cats, so instead of eating you, I'll take all the mice that you catch. How about that?" And the leopard said, "That sounds like a great idea." And Clyde the African civet started counting down. "All right, leopard, are you ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And they both split ways, looking for as many mice as they could. As they split up, it was obvious to see that the leopard was very experienced in catching mice. The leopard jumped up to a branch of a tree and seemed to know exactly where to go to find all the mice, while Clyde the African civet went back under a bush and crouched really low and waited and waited. As Clyde the African civet was waiting under a bush, he could hear the leopard jumping from tree branch to tree branch, jumping on the ground, catching mice, and you could hear the mice squeak. Clyde heard the leopard catching 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mice already, while he was still waiting for some mice to just run by him. So as Clyde the African civet was under the bush, watching the ground for some mice, the leopard already had 5 mice in his mouth, holding on to all of them by their tails. Still jumping around from branch to the ground, catching more mice, jumping back up to the branches, and finding more and more mice. Clyde the African civet finally saw some mice running by, and so he jumped up and pounced on them and caught one. He stuck the tail in his mouth, and he saw another one running by, so he pounced on another one and stuck the tail in his mouth again. Then he thought to himself, "Well, I can go on a tree branch. Maybe I should do the same thing the leopard is doing." So Clyde climbed up a tree and laid down on a tree branch with 2 mice in his mouth hanging by the tails. And as he was up on the branch, he realized it was much easier to see the whole ground, and he could actually see all the mice running and where they were coming from. So as he saw one, he jumped down from the tree branch and pounced on him and put another one in his mouth hanging by the tail. As the leopard kept catching more and more mice, Clyde the African civet looked up at the stars, and the stars were moving, and they were passing the trees, and they were almost above the mountains far away. And as Clyde kept on catching the mice, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mice in his mouth hanging by their tails, all squeaking, while the leopard's mouth was full of mice, all hanging by their tails. As the stars in the sky moved right over the mountains far away, both Clyde and the leopard came back to the same place they agreed to. And with all the mice, they both dug their own holes really deep in the ground. They were both digging and digging and digging and digging, and they dropped all of their mice into the holes. The leopard raised his head and said, "Well, how many did you catch?" Clyde, knowing that the leopard probably caught more than he did, started counting his mice really slow. "Well, let's see how many I caught, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I caught 6. The leopard broke out into laughter. "Are you kidding me? Only 6? And when they both looked down, Clyde saw the leopard's hole full of mice. There were so many mice in his hole that it was hard to even count how many there were. There was definitely more than 6 in there. So the leopard started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 mice. And as they both stopped counting, they both looked up at each other. The leopard gazing strongly into the African civet's eyes, mouth watering, ready to eat. And Clyde, seeing his whole life flash before his eyes, looked back at the leopard. He knew what was going to happen, and the leopard said to Clyde, "Well, looks like I have more mice than you do, and you know what that means." And Clyde the African civet knew exactly what that meant. But as they were looking at each other, some of the mice from the leopard's hole started climbing out of his hole. They were standing on each other like a ladder, and they climbed up out of the hole, and a bunch of them ran into and fell into Clyde's hole. And the leopard said to Clyde the African civet, "Well, would you like to just sit there and have me just eat you? Or would you like to run and I can chase you and we can make a thing out of it? Then I can eat you." The African civet thought about it for a while, and he looked up, knowing that his destiny was to be a meal for the leopard. And as he looked up at the stars, as if it was for his last time, he was ready to be eaten. And so Clyde the African civet took a deep breath. And then when he looked down, to his surprise, there were way more mice in his hole than he had seen before. And as the leopard started crouching down, ready to pounce on Clyde the African civet, Clyde looked up at the leopard and said, Wait. Hold on, I think I miscounted." And they both looked down into Clyde's hole, and they both started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 mice? The leopard couldn't believe what he was seeing. He said, Wait. What just happened here? You had 6 mice, and I had 12. How come you have more mice now? Then they both looked at the leopard's hole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mice? What in the world happened? Then Clyde the African civet said to the leopard, "I don't know, but it looks like I have more mice than you do, leopard." And the leopard really had nothing else to say because they both agreed that if Clyde the African civet had more mice, he'd be able to eat the leopard. Lucky for the leopard, Clyde the African civet didn't like to eat leopards, let alone cats, but he really loved mice. And so Clyde the African civet said to the leopard, "Hey, listen, what if I just let you go and I'll eat all of your mice and you can go and find something else to eat? Would that work for you?" And the leopard said to Clyde, "Well, that would be fair, and you are very merciful to me. Thanks. Although you would be a very good meal for me tonight, I'm a leopard of my own word. So I'll leave you alone for tonight. But watch out, because the next time I see you, if I'm hungry, I'm not going to hold back. But until then, have a good one. All right, later." And Clyde the African civet was safe from being eaten. But the mice he caught weren't. And Clyde enjoyed his meal in the moonlit sky, relieved that he was so close to being eaten, but wasn't. And nights like this always come and go for the African civet, but tonight just felt a little better. He was able to learn how to catch mice in a new way. He was able to survive for another night. And he just had a really big meal. What more can an African civet ask for? So Clyde the African civet went to his little nest made out of twigs, snuggled up in it, belly full of mice, and a very thankful attitude that he was able to survive a leopard. And he fell asleep, and the African civet lived happily ever after. The end. The African civet is a large viverrid native to sub-Saharan Africa and lives commonly in woodlands and in forests. The African civet is nocturnal and is usually a solitary mammal, which means it hangs out by itself a lot of the time. And even though it has a cat-like appearance, African civets are not felines, but they're more closely related to other small carnivores, including weasels and mongooses. They're best known for their pheromone called civetone, which is used to make perfume for centuries. One of the most distinctive features of an African civet is the black and white markings on their fur and gray face, along with the black band around their eyes, which gives them a raccoon-like appearance sometimes. The African civet's rear legs are much longer than the front legs. They can be as big as 17 to 28 inches long and can weigh between 3 to 10 pounds. They have a wide head, long neck, and a pointed white muzzle with small ears and eyes, and a white forehead. Civets are omnivores, and its diet includes fruit, vegetation, insects, eggs, birds, reptiles, frogs, fish, crabs, mice, and even small mammals like young lambs. When they're threatened, they raise their long black hairs on their backs so they can look bigger. They have an excellent sense of smell, and they can communicate with other civets by their nose and other visual and auditory cues. The pattern of streaks and spots on their bodies are unique in each African civet. Have you ever seen a real-life African civet? If you have, where did you see it? If you want to write to us, ask your parent to email us at animalstoriesforkids@gmail.com and tell us what you think of our stories. We would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening to Animal Stories for Kids. If you like our stories, please give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to our podcast, and share it with your friends and family. If you're listening on Spotify, you can support the podcast through listener support. Plus, check out exclusive show-related content and join the community at patreon.com/animalstoriesforkids. Until next time, bye!